Why'd you start rolling, you piece of shit? For the past 2 weeks, I've been using Fujifilm's new XM5 and I have a lot of thoughts about it. Mostly good, some are bad. Let's talk about it. Fujifilm's new XM5 is their latest camera in their X lineup, and they say it is the smallest camera that they've made yet. That's what they say on the website. I don't know if it's true. It could be true. It could be true. I know someone in the comments is gonna be like, oh no, but the Fuji X-M5 has been me. Okay. Fujifilm says that this is the lightest camera that they've ever made and the smallest one that they've ever made as well. And I agree. This camera is absolutely tiny. It is actually so small that it is smaller than the palm of my hand. It is also smaller than probably your smartphone.
Smoked. It's so small, you can mount one to a Nerf gun.
You'll see that footage later. But I want to dive right into the good things about the XM5 and some of the bad about the XM5. I am a Fujifilm shooter, but I will not praise it willy-nilly. I will also give my own opinions and critiques. Having a camera this small that can go into your pocket and in your bag without even feeling anything has been awesome. This camera is a beautiful camera and it can shoot amazing photos. So let's hop into the sensor. The sensor is the same one as the Fujifilm X-T4, which I already made videos about and praised for being one of the best cameras that Fujifilm has ever made. So you are still getting a 26.1 megapixel sensor, the same one in the Fujifilm X-T4, which I personally owned for 4 years. So this camera does take amazing photos. It is still a high-end camera. You can still do client work with this kind of sensor and megapixels.
Yo, it's got a dope sensor.
It's got a dope sensor. So you know you're gonna get a high quality sensor in a very small package, and that is something that Fujifilm did not skimp on, and they put a lot of thought into this camera. So the sensor is one of the older camera sensors, the X-T4, not the X-T5. But what about the processor? So the processor is the new X Processor 5. Really quickly, it's basically Fujifilm's latest and greatest. It's insanely fast. The autofocus has been really good. I've had no issues with the autofocus, especially that it has all the newest autofocus features. Even my X-H2S, which is the highest end video camera out there for Fujifilm, was not on par with the focus and autofocus on the XM5. So you know that you will not be missing your shots. You have all the usual AI stuff when it comes to subject detection, animals, planes, trains, bicycles, you name it. Okay, well, some of you are gonna ask, why would I get the XM5 over the X100, let's say? Well, the XM5 is smaller than the X100, and it is almost as good. The sensor is not the same, obviously, when it comes to the X100 but with the XM5, you do get interchangeable lenses. So if you do want to get into photography and you don't want to break the bank, this is a great entry point for anyone who is looking to get into Fujifilm's system. Because at that point, you just get your body and then you can just slowly invest in the lenses, and the body is very cheap. This camera is a very cheap camera, and I will talk about that in a bit. But let's talk a bit more about the uses of this camera. How did I use this camera in the past 2 weeks? If you're a person who does vlogging, if you're a person who does content creation, if you're a person who travels a lot and you need something small but does shoot high quality photo and high quality video better than your phone, this is absolutely the camera for you. And every single person so far that I talked to about this camera and the specs and how it works, they all said, I wish I bought this camera. But what are the features that make this a great travel camera or a content creator's camera? Well, as I said, the size and the weight, that is an obvious. But let's talk about some of the specs of the camera itself. My new favorite thing is probably the new microphone system. So usually whenever you need to vlog something, you need a proper microphone or the audio is not going to be as good. They really did a good job with the microphone system. You have 2 microphones on the front and even one in the back. And you can basically change the microphone priority to either be front, back, both, or surround. And I've tested the quality of the microphones, and honestly, it's been unreal. It's like having an actual microphone on the camera but you don't really need to have one, which even makes it smaller. One of the smartest things that they also did was they added a microphone slot at the front and not to the side. And basically that means when you have your microphone plugged in, you'll be able to open up your flippy screen without interfering with that microphone or hitting it, which is something I also suffer from when I use probably my X-H2S or any other flippy screen camera that has the microphone slot to the side. Now, a lot of people who know about Fujifilm talk about the film simulations and film recipes. If you're a person who's really into film simulations and just wants to shoot JPEG, you can absolutely do that, especially if you're traveling and you don't really want to edit your photos. We have the film simulation dial that makes an appearance here, the same one on the X-T50, which gives you quick access to all your film simulations. Personally, I did not use it much. I genuinely think it's a bit of a gimmick, but people like it. As a professional photographer, I don't really use it because I like to shoot both RAW and JPEG and edit my photos later on. They also gave you the option to have 4 custom slots, so C1 to C4, and you can basically change those to whatever you want. And because it's a content creator's camera or a vlogger's camera, what I did was I set my C1 to vlog mode, which is basically 4K 24, and my C2 to be 4K 60 for any B-roll that I want to get. But also looking at the dials, we also have a new vlog mode, and I believe it's the same vlog mode that is in the XS20. And with vlog mode, you're gonna get a new way to access all your settings on the screen itself by having a touchscreen menu that lets you basically access all of your video settings. When it comes to autofocus, when it comes to subject detection, portrait enhancer, there's also a product priority. If you're a person who does a lot of product videos or tech reviews and you point your product in front of the camera and you still want it to focus on it. But the new thing is obviously vertical video, which everyone nowadays is shooting. And you get this new 9:16 mode, which adds 2 black bars to the side of your screen, which means you will only be recording in 9:16, but it is only in full HD. It is not in 4K, which is not an issue. And you can also set a timer for like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or 60 seconds, depending on the video that you want to make. Now I'm gonna give you a real life example of how I pretty much use the XM5 by having my 8mm f3.5 on it. It basically made vlogging the easiest thing in the world. I can just hold this all day and just talk to the camera all day, and you won't even notice the weight because it's so light, and the 8mm is wide enough that you're gonna capture more of your surroundings. The cool thing is you can also probably use this as an action cam, which sounds kind of stupid, but I will show you some example footage right now of us having a Nerf battle and me just holding the XM5 with one hand and the Nerf gun in another hand and just getting a nice, basically POV look that is 4K 24 or 4K 60, whatever you're shooting in, which is higher quality than any other action cam you might think of. But moving aside from all the good stuff about the XM5, what are some of the stuff that I disliked about it? And the list is not that big, which is nice. One of my nitpicks is obviously because it's too small, I have bigger hands. While shooting and taking photos, I accidentally hit the record button several times by mistake, and I missed my photo because of that. But if you have smaller hands, then that should not be much of an issue. Another thing is if you have a plate at the bottom screwed into the bottom right here, you will not be able to open up your battery and change the battery. And that is an issue because, speaking of the battery, it is a terrible battery. It is the old battery that Fujifilm had. It's not the best. It pretty much dies pretty quick. I did test out shooting a whole vlog with the XM5 and I definitely just used up the whole battery. But because it is the older battery, they're cheaper to find and easier to buy. You can probably buy, I don't know, 2 to 4 batteries and just switch out whenever you need to. And the last thing that is a bit of a negative is that there is no viewfinder on this camera, which obviously when it comes to cutting costs and making something cheaper, you have to, avoid adding certain features. And having no viewfinder will be an issue for some people. To me, it's not much of an issue. It's up to you. Now, a couple of extra stuff that you might think about If you're a person who does street photography, this is probably the best way to do it. It's very low key. No one's gonna notice you taking any photos since it's so small. And if you do have the 27mm pancake lens, that is probably the smallest setup you can get when it comes to a Fujifilm camera and a Fujifilm XF lens. It is very tiny. You can absolutely put it in your pocket, and it's something that I have done personally. The photos, obviously the quality is really good, similar as the XT4. And if you're a person who does street, that is one of my tips to you. Now, to wrap up this entire video about the XM5, I think this is Fujifilm's best camera of the past year. I know that sounds as a bit of a stretch. I personally believe this camera will sell like hotcakes. It's a small camera, it's very cheap, and it costs 1080 Canadian, or I believe $799 USD, which when getting into photography, this is, I believe, the best you can go and cheapest you can go when it comes to Fujifilm. But in general, to summarize, this is a small camera that packs a huge punch. If you're a person who travels, I absolutely recommend this. If you're a content creator, vlogger, absolutely recommend this. It is a great camera. Fujifilm did a great job without skimping on features, and I think this is a definite buy for many people. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. You want to add anything?
It's actually a pretty sick camera. I'm gonna go film my video now.
Well, check out his video. I'm pretty sure you will. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.